and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can attach a rubric in Canvas to a Canvas assignment where you have the Google integration. So it's going to make a copy of a Google file you've attached for students. So if you've tinkered with this feature in Canvas already and been adding a rubric to an assignment, then you know it's super helpful for grading purposes. But you might have realized that when you go and you make an assignment using an external tool and go through that process to make it a Google integrated assignment, that suddenly it eliminates the option for you to add a rubric to that assignment. You might have noticed that suddenly you don't have the option to add a rubric to that assignment. You can, it's just a little bit of a backwards process in how you can do that. So I would recommend that you still attach rubrics to assignments where there's Google integrated things, just because it makes it easier for you when you go and grade, if you want to leverage the full speed grader possibilities. And it's just helpful to communicate that to students so they understand what is going to be expected of them. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can do that. So what we're going to do is first go in and we're going to act like we're building an assignment. And this is where it gets slightly different than how you would traditionally go and build a Google integrated assignment. So I'm going to click assignment, going to give it a title like we usually will. So it is going to be a little bit backwards. If I go through, I'm not going to select external tool here. I'm just going to do online, and we will come back to this in a second after we attach the rubric to select the Google file. So I go down, I select my due date per usual, and then I'll just click save. And then here is where I can build my rubric or apply a rubric. So for this example, I'm just going to build the rubric. We're going to make this a very simple rubric. Obviously, when you do this, you'll want to make your rubric a little bit more descriptive. And then if I want to apply the points from this rubric to override the score for this assignment, because I set the score as 0, I'll just basically change this to use this rubric for assignment grading so that as I go through and I mark the rubric, it's going to give my students the accurate score here. And I don't have to do double duty and enter grades twice. So create rubric, change, because we're going to make it to where it's out of 2 points instead of 0. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this again. So I'm going to click edit. And this is where we're going to go back and add the Google file. All right. So this is a little unique in that whenever you want to apply a rubric to an assignment where you're going to be creating copies of a Google resource for students, you have to build the rubric first and then go back and set it up as a Google integrated assignment. Because if you add the Google integrated piece first, it eliminates this rubric piece. This is kind of like a hack to do this a little bit more efficiently. So if I select edit, now we're going to go back and change the submission type. We're going to select external tool, and this is where I can go through and find that file in my Google Drive that I want to have copies made for my students. So I'll click attach, and I'll search for it. This is a vocab, so I'm going to select it, click add. It's there, Canvas Speed Grader selected, which is what I want, and create. All right, and then I'll click select, and we know it worked because it has this little Google link here. That's all good. And now I'm going to click save and publish. Okay, so when it does this is a little deceiving. You might think, well, where did my rubric just go? Usually my rubric stays right there. So interesting thing here is that your rubric will disappear from this view for a little bit. But whenever you open Speed Grader and want to give feedback to students, it's the same process where you can click View Rubric and access it from there and provide feedback to your students. So if you're thinking, well, how can my students see my rubric beforehand? Because, you know, with any other assignment, it's going to put the rubric right here so they can look at that before they answer. But in this view, it's going to open a new window, and I just want to make sure that they see it. So if you're wondering how your students can still see your rubric so that they can plan accordingly, what you will want to do is direct students to the Grades tab on Canvas. And if you have any rubrics that are published there and associated with assignments, that's always one place where students can access the grades so they can see how they did, but also see rubrics that you've published essentially on published assignments. So I'm going to toggle into student view really quickly so I can show you what that looks like. So if I come over here to grades, the assignment that we just made is called Sample Test with Rubric. All right. So if I click this, I haven't done the assignment yet, so it's just showing me like a whole lot of nothing here. But when I click into that assignment, in this top corner, I can click show rubric, and now I can see what my teacher is going to be evaluating me on. All right, so it is a little bit clunkier than the traditional view, but there still is a way to apply a rubric to an assignment where you have a Google attachment for students, just a little bit trickier than the traditional view. So if you're wondering, so this is the way that you can get your students to the rubric. If you're wondering how can I use the rubric when I go and I grade the assignment, I'm going to leave student view for here for a second to show you. So if I go back to that assignment that we just made, and as you know, it's not looking like very obviously that the rubric is there for me to use in grading. If I click the speed grader button here, you will notice that I still have the button here to view the rubric. So even though it looks like my rubric was hidden, it is very much still there. So I can still go through and use that for grading for the students in my class, even though it was a Google attachment that will load right here when the student submits it. All right, so I still have all of those speed grader options. So that is a helpful feature here. I know it's a little bit backwards in how you have to do it, but wanted to show you this because I know a lot of you use Google Integrated Assignment.